Welcome to KR Films Entertainment Channel. Today I am going to explain a 2021 apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic film called Sweet Tooth. 10 years ago, a virus called the Great Crumble spread around the whole world and killed so many. Along with the deadly virus, the mysterious emergence of hybrids, part human and part animal, also began. Some thought hybrids were the result of the virus, some thought they were the cause of it. For so many years, humans feared hybrids. It became a mission for most humans to hunt down hybrids, but then there's one special boy named Gus. His father, whom he calls his Pabba, brought him to the forest when he was still just a baby. And in the forest they lived peacefully. Gus turned 8, still not knowing anything about the outside world. All he knew was to not go outside the fence as it was very dangerous out there. Gus trusted his father and would always listen to him. But of course trust wears thin, especially when you realize that you've always been kept in the dark. Gus grew curious about the outside world and about his mother. Gus was quickly growing up, and so his father decided to just tell him the truth about the outside world. How greedy the humans are, how nature punished the world by spreading a virus and killing the humans, and how hybrids like Gus suddenly came into existence mysteriously. One day a man stumbled upon the fence his father built around their home. The man questioned his father about his way of living in the forest and if he knew what was happening out there. Seeing as Gus' father is living in the forest all by himself, the man knew Gus' father was not under any company. The man leaves, but Gus' father knew he was coming back as the man has tied pink ribbons on his fences, a sign that he has been marked. Gus' father told the young hybrid to hide under the staircase as he went out to face the man. Once he came back, Gus did until he heard screams. Gus went out to look for his father and saw him looking so pale. His father fainted, and when he woke up, he was already so weak, he realized that he had been infected with the Great Crumble virus, and not wanting Gus to see him die, he told the young hybrid to make breakfast for him. Gus did, but when he came back to give his Pabba his breakfast, he was already gone. Gus stayed in their home all by himself. Even though his father was gone, he still remembers what his father told him about the outside world and never once tried to go outside. Gus survived all by himself with the help of his imagination, but Gus grew frustrated as time passed. He was all alone with no one to talk to, and the only thing keeping him sane was his imagination and his dog, the plushie that his father made for him. One day Gus stumbled upon a tree with carvings on it. He realized that his father must have buried something under the tree and dug it out. He saw a box and he used the keys his father had left him to open the box. He saw money, credit cards, a flyer about a center for hybrids, and a picture of a woman. Gus knew that woman in the picture was his mother, and when he read the word Colorado on the picture, he decided he was going to Colorado to look for his mother. He looked for Colorado on the map. He hasn't prepared everything he needed to travel. But just as he was leaving, he saw a pack of chocolate lying on the ground. He cautiously took it, opened it, and ate it. Gus liked the taste of the chocolate, and when he saw another pack just a few feet away from him, he ran to take it. Suddenly an arrow flew past him. Someone knew Gus was there, and the young hybrid knew he was in real danger. He ran away but got caught by one of the two men who were hunting him. One of the men talked about bringing him to the lab, but the other suggested bringing him to the east instead. Gus broke free from the man holding him and ran away, only to bump into a much bigger man. The bigger man focused on the two other men, so Gus quickly left the scene and went back to his home, hiding under the staircase. After killing the two men, the big man went into Gus' home and tried to talk with him. The big man was surprised when he heard Gus speak, as it seemed like no other hybrid knew how to talk and Gus was the only one. The big man initially wanted to take Gus for himself and bring him to the lab. But after talking to Gus, he decided to just leave the boy. Before he leaves, Gus asks him where Colorado is and tells him that he wants to look for his mother. He told Gus that it wasn't worth it as it was very dangerous out there. Before leaving, left alone once again, Gus pondered over his thoughts. He then decided to run after the big man so he could tag along. Now that we know Gus' story, let's find out the story of a girl named Amy. Before the Great Crumble, Amy was a prisoner of a mundane life. Every day was a repeating cycle for her. She was a therapist for couples. And it has always bored her, until one day, she was listening to her client when suddenly, the client's pinky finger started trembling. It was one of the symptoms of the Great Crumble, and not even a minute later, Amy's phone buzzed with an emergency broadcast system. A mandatory quarantine begins and the world quickly falls into chaos. Everyone was told to stay indoors and anyone showing symptoms must be avoided at all costs. For weeks, Amy became a prisoner inside her own office. One day, Amy finally decided to go out, only to see nothing. The whole city has been abandoned. Amy then heard a loud whine from an animal and saw a group of elephants passing by her. Amy laughed, finally feeling free like the elephants walking around the city without any care. Amy went to the zoo. which was already empty. No animals were left except for one eagle still locked in a cage. Amy entered the cage and gently guided the eagle outside, and just like how she was finally set free from the boring cycle that was her life, Amy let the eagle fly freely. Now that we know the stories of both Gus and Amy, we'll see how fate will bring these stories together. Gus followed Big Man around, but Big Man refused to acknowledge him or bring him to Colorado. Big Man kept on telling Gus to go back to his home, but Gus was persistent. No matter how much Big Man pushed him around, he just kept on following him. One night Big Man set up a campfire to eat and rest, and Gus stayed with him. The next day Big Man realized that Gus had eaten all his food, and to not make him even angrier, Gus went to a lodge to look for food while Big Man stayed outside as a lookout. Gus entered the lodge and walked around. When he saw a deer head decorating the wall, Gus got scared and tried to run out, but got caught in a trap. Another kid then approached the net and yelled for his parents when he saw Gus. Later on, Gus and Big Man were eating with the family, and the family was cautious around the two of them, especially Gus as he is a hybrid. The Big Man tells them that they are not sick as they have been isolated, so the family took off their masks. Gus then asked if he could play with the other kid Rusty, and the mother asked Big Man if Gus bites. Gus doesn't bite, so the mother allowed him to go to her son, and Gus did. Gus went to where Rusty was and they conversed with each other. The mother watched them from outside, and Rusty rubbed Gus' ear, causing him to stomp repeatedly in satisfaction. The mother watched with a smile as the two kids played around. Meanwhile, Big Man and the father are having a conversation of their own. Big Man introduced himself as Tommy, a former football player, and demanded the father let them stay the night. Back to the kids, Gus and Rusty were playing around, but Rusty got frustrated because Gus was just too good at every game, as Gus heard everything. So he just let Gus listen to his records, and they danced. When Tommy and the father entered the room, the mother looked back with a smile on her face. That smile turned into a worried frown when she noticed the tattoo on Tommy's chest. Somewhere else, a doctor named Aditya Singh was playing Scrabble with his wife Rani Singh. When Rani's pinky finger started trembling, Aditya went to get her medication from the cabinet. When he opened the kit, he realized that he only had 2 medicines left. He injected one into Rani and went to a restaurant where Drive Gladys Bell was to get a refill of the medicines. Dr. Bell asked Aditya to help her keep track of Rani's medication so she could perfect the medicine and create a cure for the virus. Aditya disagreed with doing what she wanted, but Drive Bell insisted. She explained why Aditya needs to help her, and she told Aditya that Aditya would be the perfect help for her to find the cure because there's nothing he wouldn't do to help his wife. Aditya went home and told Rani about what Drive Bell asked of him. He told her that he doesn't think he should be helping Drive Bell because what she is doing to find the cure goes against everything Aditya and Rani believe in. Rani read through the notes Drive Bell gave Aditya and was shocked to see the content of them. Tommy was preparing to leave the family's home, and when the mother of the family came to talk to him, she asked him if he was one of the hunters. He said yes but didn't say why he saved Gus, and then he told her to let Gus stay with them. Looking for Birdie, Gus' mother, wouldn't be worth it, and it would be better for Gus to stay with the family. The mother relented and then finally said that she was going to talk to George, her husband. Meanwhile, Rusty and Gus were already getting ready to sleep when the mother came and tucked them in. The parents went to their own rooms and Gus went to the entrance where Tommy was. Gus was sad to learn Tommy was leaving him when suddenly they heard footsteps. They looked through the glass window and saw a group of armed men approaching the house. One of them yelled to get the family's attention, telling them to give them Gus and they wouldn't be hurt. George took Rusty, and the family hid on the other side. George whispered to Gus to go to them, but Gus refused to move when he heard yells coming from the men outside. He peeked and saw Tommy fighting the men. Then one of the men entered the home, silently walking in. Gus hid himself, and when he got the right timing, he headbutted the man on his leg using his horn. The man aimed his gun at Gus only to see a large deer lurking behind him, lurking like it was Gus' guardian. As the man stared at the deer behind Gus, Tommy sneaked in from behind and knocked him out. The next day Tommy was leaving again, but with Gus this time. As much as the family wanted Gus to stay with them, they still need to survive, and Gus being with them just means that they're going to keep getting targeted by the hunters looking for Gus. So using the gondola lift, Tommy and Gus left the lodge. In the zoo, Amy was taking care of the plants when she heard something outside the zoo. She went out and saw a basket with a baby hybrid in it. Somewhere a group of young adults were playing VR games when they received an emergency. The group went out of the amusement park they were staying in, heading somewhere. Back to Gus and Tommy. The duo has been traveling together. When the night came, the two of them found a bus they could stay in, and when Gus slept for the night, he dreamt of waking up in the bus, where the outside was filled with snow and there was nowhere to go. He screamed for Tommy before jolting awake. Aditya, on the other hand, ended up accepting Drive Bell's request. He started working as a doctor again, and every day, he is reminded of why he stopped being one in the first place. He questioned Drive Bell's ways of finding the cure and still can't believe how heartless it all was. Back at his home, Rani wanted to go to a party a neighbor was holding. Aditya tried to refuse, as Rani was sick, and if the others found out, they'd be in real trouble. But Rani insisted, and Aditya had no choice but to relent. At the party, they were playing charades when Rani's pinky finger started trembling. He held Rani's hand to cover her finger, and Rani whispered to him that she was fine. Aditya and Rani were silently talking in the kitchen when one of the partygoers approached them and started talking to them. Then a man named Doug accidentally dropped a glass on the counter, and his finger started trembling. Everyone tied him up, and Aditya checked if he had the virus. He didn't. When everyone found out, they burned Doug so as not to spread the virus. Aditya and Rani felt scared at the sight of the house burning because if people found out that Rani also had the virus, this would happen to them too. Gus and Tommy arrived at the market, where Gus will be taking the train to Colorado. Tommy made a headgear for Gus so Gus' horn and ears would look like it was fake, to avoid people's suspicion. Arriving at the market, Tommy went to buy tickets while Gus waited for her. Gus then saw some kids outside the station playing around and followed them. He watched the kids playing, and when he heard them throwing stones at pictures and yelling about the hybrids, he felt scared. One girl was watching as the other kids looked at Gus weirdly. Gus kept on walking backwards in fear as the other kids just turned back to their game, ignoring him, and Gus bumped into the girl who was watching him. The girl helped him calm down and she asked him if he was alone. Gus said yes, and the girl told him to come with her. Gus started following the girl but was pulled away by Tommy. The girl watched as Gus was taken away by Tommy. Gus and Tommy went to the train, and Gus told Tommy that a group of men had the same candy as Tommy. Hearing about the candy, which is actually pills that he's taking regularly, he and Gus sneaked into the cargo to get some. When Tommy finally got some, they hurried to get back to the train but were caught by a soldier. Tommy fought with the guy and the gun was fired. The guy then realized that Gus was a hybrid, and Tommy knocked him down. Then they ran to the train. Tommy let Gus enter the train and was about to leave him, but they were caught by the soldiers who pulled Gus' headgear, revealing that he's a hybrid. The soldiers then tied them up and were taking them somewhere when a group came and helped them. The leader of the group took off her headgear, revealing the same woman who talked to Gus earlier. Meanwhile, in the abbot's headquarters, one of the abbot's soldiers approached the general abbot and reported that they had found her. The man ordered them to start packing before turning to look at the flyer about providing shelter for hybrids. Meanwhile, the group initially wanted to kill Tommy as they have no need for him, but when Gus asked not to shoot Tommy down, they decided to bring Tommy to their base too. Amy brought her adopted daughter Wendy outside to look for things they needed. The two of them were having fun when Wendy suddenly said that she smelled smoke. Amy hastily pulled Wendy and their cart away and hid behind a wall. Then an abbot soldier came in, checking the surroundings. Amy sighed in relief when the soldier didn't notice them and the two of them went back home. Gus and the others have arrived at the Animal Army's hideout. The Animal Army is a group of teenagers born before the Great Crash, where the woman who saved Gus and Tommy is the first member and the leader of the pack, as she was the one who created the army. Bear then introduced Gus to the other members of the Animal Army and Gus cowered as everyone stared at him. When Bear told him that they were just excited, Gus stepped forward and said hi, causing the army to get even more excited as they approached the two of them. Then Bear announced that Gus would be the king for the night, and everyone cheered. They all lined up giving Gus gifts and treating him like a king. Then they showed Gus the VR game they created. In the VR game they can become hybrids too, just like Gus, and Gus asked why they would want to be like the hybrids when most people hate hybrids. Then Bear explained that humans are just stupid and hybrids are special. Before the Great Crumble, humans, the grown-ups specifically, took so much from the planet and left the younger ones with nothing. The world suffered so much because of the humans' selfishness, and when the Great Crumble happened, the younger ones who had lost their families had to fend for themselves, which is why the Animal Army hated the other humans despite being humans themselves. They believed that the hybrids were sent to heal their world. When Gus was back to playing with the other members of the Animal Army, Bear talked with Tiger, her second hand. Tiger was confused and annoyed that they were keeping Gus. Since Gus had been branded, he was going to keep getting hunted down, and the Animal Army might fall into danger too, along with Gus. But Bear didn't listen to Tiger. She was interested in Gus, especially after seeing Gus try to protect Tommy. They have never seen a hybrid speak or protect their poacher, and it piques Bear's curiosity. Bear and Gus were talking, and Bear was trying to convince Gus to stay with them. When she learned that Gus wanted to go to Colorado to look for her mom, Bear seemed disappointed. Bear tried to tell Gus that Tommy was a bad guy and that he was one of the last men who made it their mission to eliminate the hybrids. Gus then asked where Tommy was and said he wanted to see him. Meanwhile, Aditya was having a nightmare. He dreamed of what he'd read in Dr. Bell's notes and how cruel it was. When he woke up, he went to the restaurant now turned into a hospital and looked for the secret sauce. Secret sauce is a mixture of bone marrow and the pineal gland of a living hybrid. This is why they are looking for a living hybrid so they can dissect it and use it as an ingredient for antiviral treatment. When Aditya went back home, he saw that their neighbor, Nancy, was talking with his wife inside their home. Nancy wanted Aditya to test everyone to see if there was anyone else with the virus, but Aditya disapproved as they didn't have enough test kits anymore. And also because his wife also has the virus and would surely get killed if everyone were to find out. Nancy got suspicious of the married couple but didn't say anything else and left the Singh's home. When she stepped out, she planned on telling the other neighbors that Aditya and Rani were hiding something. Aditya tried to stop her, but to no avail. Then Nancy walked away only to get kicked by Aditya's horse and die. In Amy and Wendy's home at the zoo, they heard a strange sound and cautiously looked where the sound was coming from. Amy was on alert, thinking that it might be a hunter, but Wendy saw that it was just a hybrid named Bobby, who looked like a full animal but could talk like a human. Meanwhile, Tommy was going to be sentenced to death by the animal army as he was one of the last men or the hunters who kill hybrids. Gus told Bear that Tommy was different and that while he used to be one of the last men, he still protected Gus. It wavered Bear and caused her to have second thoughts. And when the time for Tommy's death sentence came, she changed her mind and told everyone that Tommy shouldn't be killed as he protected Gus and that was their objective, to protect the hybrids. If they were to harm Tommy, they'd also harm Gus in the process. But Tiger refuted her words and told everyone that Tommy was still one of the last men and that he had brainwashed Gus and Bear into thinking that he deserved to live. Everyone agreed with Tiger, and that's when Bear realized that she was no longer in control of her own army. They opened the cage where a large tiger was. They were going to use the tiger to kill Tommy, but then the tiger saw Gus and seemed to cower. The other members of the army seemed to get even more agitated as the tiger cowered and they went to get the animal out. Using the chaos around them as an opportunity, Gus untied Tommy, and the two of them ran away to continue their own journey together, while Bear watched on in dejection. Seeing as everyone else had gone against her, the animal army has sided with Tiger and turned their backs on the one who gave them shelter in the first place. Bear dropped her mask on the ground before finally turning and walking away from the people she once called friends. Thanks for watching.